Just making sure I have a connection here, and we'll get started in just a moment. Great, okay, we're live. Hi, I'm Pam Fox at pamfox.org. You can learn more about me in the About Me tab at my website, pamfox.org. In today's video, I'm actually announcing that I'm launching my latest project, and I'm going to tell a little bit about that. We're going to talk about how you can know if you have a hiatal hernia, and I'm actually going to be going through those symptoms that I listed to give you a better idea as to why the hiatal hernia creates the symptoms that it does, so that you can clearly see that we do have more control over this condition than we've led believe. So the announcement is that I am launching this project that I've been working on, hiatal hernia, the breath-belly diaphragm connection. And I will put a link to that when I'm done streaming live below so that you can check that out and learn more about that. And at the end of this live, I will be sharing the discount offer that's going to be going with the launch. So it's basically a discount on this course. And then if you want to bundle my first course and this course, there's additional savings for that. So I'll talk more about that at the end of the live. So basically, just really quick, what the course is. So my first course was how to reverse a hiatal hernia naturally. This course was born out of a need of people asking, well, what do I do now that I've reversed my hiatal hernia? So your diaphragm is a muscle. It has a hole in it known as the hiatus. Your esophagus comes through that. And once you learn how to get your stomach down, it's important then to have some type of a maintenance program that keeps your diaphragm healthy and strong, right? Because it's a muscle. If you were to go to the gym for every day for the next year and get your body in perfect shape and then quit and go back to your sedentary lifestyle, you wouldn't keep that perfect body, right? You would have to have some type of maintenance for your muscles. And so I've developed a really easy and enjoyable protocol that's meant to keep your diaphragm healthy and strong. It's meant to move the stomach down and move the diaphragm up and away from each other. And it's meant to strengthen and tighten your hiatus and your diaphragm. Who is it for? It's for people with a small hiatal hernia. It has not been tested on larger hiatal hernias. You want to check out my first course and learn how to master the ability to move your stomach down, which can take time. Learn how to change the things that you might be doing that consistently push your stomach up, right? So that that's not occurring in your life. But it's for, if you have a small hiatal hernia, this course would be beneficial for you in reversing that and tightening your diaphragm. If you have learned and mastered the ability to move your stomach down, then this course is for you. So if you're able to get relief from my exercises from your symptoms, but you have to continually do that every time you're symptomatic, then this course is for you because it's going to really be that next step in strengthening your diaphragm so that the symptoms don't come back anymore, right? So there's two things that happen in order to have a hiatal hernia. One is that hiatus becomes enlarged, right? It's a muscle. It can get flabby, for lack of a better word, and that hole can open up. It can get enlarged for other reasons as well. People can be born with a hiatal hernia. They can have a hiatal hernia due to trauma, a blunt force or a puncture. But most people, their diaphragm is a muscle and it just gets weak and the hole becomes dilated. And so then you combine that enlarged hiatus with something that's pushing your stomach up, right? So the hiatus enlarges, something that's pushing on your stomach, and it eventually goes through the diaphragm. So if you've learned the ability to get your stomach down and out of the herniated position, and now you want to really tone that diaphragm, right, and just kind of have the final piece of the puzzle, that's what I've created this course for. So if you've reversed your hiatal hernia, you are reversing your hiatal hernia, whether naturally or maybe you had surgical repair and had that moved down. This is just simple breath work that's hiatal hernia specific to strengthen your diaphragm, keep your diaphragm up, and keep your stomach down. So that's what it is, and that's who it's for. So let's get into how you know if you have a hiatal hernia. So the only way you can officially know is to be tested. Have a test done by a technician. So that would be in the form of maybe a barium swallow where they actually, you swallow barium, they put you in an x-ray machine, and then they can see your stomach is in your diaphragm. Or they can see it with an endoscopy. And then you have an actual picture, an actual diagnosis from a doctor that says, yes, you have a hiatal hernia. So that's how you can officially know. But another way you can know is if you do my protocol, you do my exercises, you start to get relief from these symptoms, and then you'll be able to know that, yeah, I must have had a hiatal hernia because now the symptoms are going away because of these exercises. But that's not what this stream is about. That's not what my course is about. It's not about finding out if you have a hiatal hernia. It's about eliminating the symptoms that the hernia creates, right? Because that's what we want at the end of the day. We want to eliminate the pain and the discomfort that the hernia creates so that we can go on with our lives and live our lives pain-free and symptom-free, right? So let's go through this list of symptoms. So first of all, burping, okay? And taking a step back, a person with a hiatal hernia doesn't necessarily have all of these symptoms. They could even have no symptoms, although, I mean, that's pretty rare. You wouldn't go in and have a test done unless you had some kind of symptom, right? You wouldn't have a barium swallow unless you had some type of symptom, right? But that's what doctors say. They say that people have hiatal hernias and they have no symptoms. I have yet to meet these people. But you can have 1 or 2 symptoms. You can have 10 or 12 symptoms. Everyone's going to be different. It just depends on your hiatal hernia, how it's positioned, how long it's been there, your lifestyle. Many different things are going to factor in. So burping. So with a hiatal hernia, if this is your diaphragm and this is your stomach, it's supposed to sit, under your diaphragm like that. The esophagus comes through that hole, the hiatus, just like that. And with the hiatal hernia, then your stomach is now pushing through that hiatus. So now you see a little bit of your stomach is up above your diaphragm in your chest cavity. And so the thing you have to understand about this is with every breath we take, the pressure in our chest cavity and in our abdominal cavity, but we're focusing on the chest cavity for now, changes from high pressure to low pressure, from high pressure to low pressure with every breath we take. And so that little bit of stomach is in your chest cavity, and it is under that high pressure, low pressure, high pressure, low pressure. So that's the first thing you need to understand. The second thing you need to understand is that we do swallow air when we swallow, when we eat. The air can go into the esophagus and into the stomach. So now you've got built up and trapped air in this little portion of your stomach, right? And at the top of your stomach, where the esophagus meets the stomach, is your lower esophageal sphincter. And we talk a lot about this little guy in both of my courses. Its job is to clamp down tight and only release, to allow food to come in, to allow vomiting, or to allow a belch. All right, so it will open if there's enough pressure on it to release that air in the form of a belch. And so if you have trapped air in this little portion of your stomach, and that's irritating your LES and telling it, I feel irritated, I need to release this pressure, it will create or communicate with you or with the body that you need to belch. Also, that pressure in the chest cavity that's putting pressure on that LES as well. So it's all about pressure. So you have pressure within the stomach, the air that's trapped in the stomach, pressure on the stomach from those high pressures and low pressures that occur with every breath. And that LES, because of all of that pressure, will say, okay, I need to open up and release this air. And then, you have that sensation, I need to burp. You burp, and then maybe a few seconds go by and I need to burp again. Why? Because there's still pressure. With every breath you take, there's high pressure on that, and plus any air that you're swallowing. Maybe you're not swallowing air. Maybe it's just the pressure in your chest cavity. Maybe it's a combination of both. Okay? So that's belching. The next one is nausea and indigestion, and those three kind of go together. So that the LES, the lower esophageal sphincter, when it needs to, when it's irritated for any reason, again, it's going to communicate with you that pain and discomfort. Why does the body communicate pain and discomfort? It's trying to let you know that something's not quite right, that there's a threat detected, there's something that could harm the body, right? The body is a survivor, so it's going to communicate with you pain and discomfort in the hope that you'll make some kind of a correction, right? So if that LES is irritated, if there's pressure on it, you might sense nausea, you might sense indigestion, right? Like if we are sick, if we have a virus or food poisoning, we'll start to feel that nauseous feeling, right? That's that LES is starting to communicate with you that something's not quite right, and maybe it needs to vomit that poison out. And so then a milder form of that would just be like a mild low-grade nausea where the LES is irritated, or indigestion, where you just feel like if I could just burp, I would feel better. And again, it's that pressure on the LES and then maybe trapped air that needs to be released. So I hope that makes sense. And then moving on to reflux. So reflux is when the acid in the stomach is rising up into the esophagus. So again, it's that LES is not clamping down tight and keeping those contents in the stomach like it's supposed to. Somehow that's opening up, and then the acid is rising up into the esophagus. Okay, and so this can happen actually for a number of reasons. One of them is hiatal hernia. I'm going to grab my beach ball. So that lower esophageal sphincter, if you think of like a little valve on a ball like this, it's a one-way valve. And you guys, if you've ever blown up a ball like this, you know that when you pinch that valve, you can get the air in easier. And then when you let go, it traps the air inside, right? And if I were to open this up and pinch this valve, then the air would leak out and this would deflate. Well, your lower esophageal sphincter is a one-way valve as well. And if there's pressure on that, then it's not going to be able to do its job accurately. And pressure can come in the form of a hiatal hernia, whether your stomach is pressing up against your diaphragm can create that pressure, or through the hiatal hernia can create that pressure on the LES and make it so that it can't clamp down tight and do its job appropriately. So, but you can have GERD without a hiatal hernia as well. If your LES is irritated and injured for any reason, then it might be inflamed. And so if anything on your body is inflamed, it's not going to be able to do its job as accurately, right? So if you sprain your ankle, you need to elevate it, you need to ice it, you need to rest it. You wouldn't just expect it to perform normally when it's injured and inflamed. And the same thing is true with the LES. It's not going to be able to clamp down tight and do its job if it's always inflamed. Well, why would it get inflamed? Well, usually this has to do with what we're consuming. If you're drinking a lot of soda or coffee or alcohol or junk foods, things that are going through that LES on a regular basis and continue to irritate it and cause damage to it, and then it becomes inflamed as a response to that injury. That's what inflammation is. It's a response to injury. And then once you have inflammation, it's difficult for it to do its job, which is to clamp down tight and keep that acid in the stomach. So that's a reason besides hiatal hernia that you might have reflux. Just different foods will injure that LES and cause it to not be able to work. But as far as hiatal hernia, again, it's all about that valve. And if you've got pressure on that valve, and then you combine that with poor diet, then you can really have some really serious heartburn or reflux, where the reflux is coming up out of the stomach and into the esophagus. And that's no good. And that's why it's so important to consider a hiatal hernia important. I know that I belong to the hiatal hernia support group on Facebook, and I see people, and even my doctor told me, oh, you have a hiatal hernia, but it shouldn't be, it's not that big a deal. It is a big deal, and I'm really sorry, for any of you that your doctors have told you that, because obviously you're suffering or you wouldn't have gone to the doctor in the first place. And a hiatal hernia, if you are having reflux and you can't get that under control, that sets you up for risk for things that are more serious. So it is something that you need to address. If you have long-term reflux, that puts you at high risk for esophagitis, which puts you at high risk for Barrett's esophagus, which puts you at high risk for esophageal cancer. So we want to address a hiatal hernia as early as possible. Get that stomach to move down, get the diaphragm up, get them away from each other so everything can heal, the LES can heal, the vagus nerve can heal, and we can be symptom-free. All right, so let's move on. Anxiety. So anxiety, heart palpitations, panic attacks, these are all common symptoms of hiatal hernia as well, and this is because of our vagus nerve. So if you ever Google an image of the vagus nerve, it's really actually quite amazing and beautiful. If you ever take like a clipping of a plant and put it in a jar of water to create that rooting, the root system to come out, that's kind of what the vagus nerve looks like. It's this beautiful root system that starts, in the brainstem, and it comes up all these nerves into the face and down, and it innervates almost all of our organs, our heart and our lungs and our stomach and our liver and our spleen and our intestines, all of these it innervates them, meaning it supplies that nerve supply to all of those organs. And it's the main nerve, it runs down the esophagus and all along, I can't get down low enough so you can see, but all along the stomach. And so if your stomach is now lodged in your diaphragm, that essentially you've got a belt around your stomach, and your stomach expands every time you eat, right? And you've got a belt around your stomach, putting pressure potentially on that nerve, just depending on how it's situated and maybe how big a meal you eat. And so with the vagus nerve, when that becomes, injured and inflamed, just think of any, nerve condition that's widely well known, like carpal tunnel I always use as an example. So the nerves run here through the carpal tunnel, and when we get inflammation there of that tunnel, it puts pressure on those nerves, right? And then what happens? Well, you can have, maybe pain here, but usually you have beyond the site, you have pain, tingling, numbness, weakness in your hand, right? And you lose function or ideal function of your hand because of those symptoms. And so now imagine you've got pressure on your vagus nerve that innervates all of these different organs, okay? And so that's why, it's really, when it comes to hiatal hernia, it can become, the list of symptoms can be quite long when we start to kind of speculate that some of these symptoms could be really related to an inflamed vagus nerve. But definitely we know that with a hiatal hernia, heart palpitations, anxiety, and panic attacks are common symptoms. And it's connected to this vagus nerve. You can also have, if your hiatal hernia is pushing on your heart, your aorta is in the mix here as well. So these symptoms start to make, clear sense. That we can have a panic attack for no reason. Wake up in the middle of the night, you're curled up in a ball, all of that pressure on your vagus nerve. Wake up in the middle of the night sweating and scared and panicky and breathless and feel like you're gonna die, something like that, which happens to people. So moving on, breathlessness I just mentioned. So if your stomach is pushing against your lungs, so again, it comes through the diaphragm, your lungs are right on top of the diaphragm. That could be a reason why your lungs aren't able to fully inflate. But the more obvious reason is you have an obstruction in your diaphragm. So if your stomach is in your diaphragm, remember your diaphragm is meant to move up and down with every breath. And now you have an obstruction in it, right? Which means it might not be able to move all the way up. It's probably not able to push all the way down because of the obstruction and because, again, of intragastric pressure that's pushing up against it. And so if your diaphragm can't push all the way down and go through its fullest range of motion, then it's not going to be able to pull all the air in and fully inflate the lungs, right? When the diaphragm contracts and breathes down as we breathe in, it pulls the air in from the atmosphere and fills those lungs. And the ribs expand to allow for that inhalation. But if it can't pull all that air in because it can't push all the way down, maybe it just kind of moves shallowly like that, then you're not going to be able to get a full breath. So it makes perfect sense. You've got an obstruction in your diaphragm. So breathlessness and, pain. You can have pain at the herniated site, which is, obviously you've got your stomach is in your diaphragm, so the tissues of your diaphragm are irritated and sensitive. The tissues of your stomach are irritated and sensitive. And then that pain can, radiate outward, and you can have pain, in a lot of different locations. So yeah, I know on the hiatal hernia support group, when people complain of pain, it can be in their shoulder from a hiatal hernia, So yeah, and the list goes on, ringing in the ears has been a suspected symptom of hiatal hernia, headaches, fainting is actually not a common one, but it can happen again with when you factor in the vagus nerve and pressure on the vagus nerve or an inflamed vagus nerve. All right, so that's it for today's live. So my offer for today is I will post it below. It will take you directly to my website, and you can learn more about all of this stuff. But it's going to be, this course that I'm launching today is actually discounted at $49. It's usually $67, so it's discounted And then if you want to bundle my 2 courses, that's going to be the best value. So the Reversing Hiatal Hernia Naturally course and this course, which has exercise tutorials, breath work, meditative tutorials led by me, with nice calm music in the background, and very soothing, to strengthen and tighten your diaphragm, move the diaphragm up, move the stomach down. If you want to bundle those 2 courses, that's the best value, and that's going to be $99. So that's $35 savings. Okay, so that's it. Again, you can find out more. I will post the link as soon as I'm done streaming this. Thank you so much for watching, and for now, I wish you healing and peace.